Hey everybody, welcome to Heifer USA. Today we got a really exciting tour for you. I'm here with Daniel Salatin from Polyface Farms, a farm and a farmer that really need no introduction. Daniel's going to give us a little bit different perspective of Polyface Farms and show the day-to-day operation, why they make the decisions that they make and how they run this farm.
We're at Polyface Farm in Swope, Virginia. Every job is sacred and imparting the value of all tasks. This is just a pond we built. It was very strategic. We found latent knowledge is being transferred from one generation to the next. We don't want to have to take all of our resources from the farm to the city. We want the city to come to us. The best compost you can make for the least amount of investment, they can come and see the farm at any time. And so that creates that trust transparency. My name's Daniel Salatin. I've been here my whole life and I've been growing up on this area. This is what I've called home my whole life. Grow up here and learn all of its ins and outs, but also the kind of development and metamorphosis of things, how they change. I mean, nothing stays the same. So the idea of what maybe you've seen before or what you've read about in the past is not always the same. A lot of the principles are the same, and that's what makes it exciting, is the principles of making land better, healthy soil, building more nutrient-dense food, investing in people and community, all those things, those are the same. The question is, how do you do it? And that's kind of what our goal is on a daily basis, figure out what's the best way to make those things happen. I get affectionately called range boss, but at the same time, I'm day-to-day operations manager. I'm overseeing all of the different logistics that are going on as far as livestock and people and their interaction between each other. At the same time, handling some of the steward, we call them steward training and or apprentice training throughout. And also, like on butcher days, you know, I'm there, we're like teaching the processing, teaching the killing, teaching the visceration, and being there, being one of those leaders. We try to have about a 1-to-3 or a 1-to-2 teacher to student ratio. So like on processing day, we might have like 4 leaders, if you will, and then, you know, 8 to 10 students, if you will. So trying to keep them efficient, because ultimately a lot of these are wanting to go out and be their own farmers and be professional, not have an off-farm job. They want to pay the bills with farming. And how do we help them do that? Well, one of the ways is to not waste time and not waste money and not lose opportunity that you could turn into sales. So we try to be very specific and very strategic with our teaching, going through not only the specifics of how, but also why. Really getting your hands dirty with it is where it really makes sense. Yeah. And especially for a certain demographic of people. I mean, I'm a hands-on learner, so I get it. Like, I can read a book 5 times, doesn't help. I see somebody do it, or they show me how to do it, I've got it for life. We have about 950 acres here in Virginia, and the opportunity to massage it, work with it, and interact with the land. And so we're talking about mixing our different ecosystems, so pasture, woodland, forest, water, and at the same time being able to access it to use.
Where do we want to head to today first?
So I can show people this is why you would put it here, and then they can hopefully implement that on their own farm.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, let's get started.
All right, let's head out. I think one of the things that my parents did a really great job on that I'm really grateful for, and that is the idea of every job is sacred, and the imparting the value of all tasks. You know, we talk about that a lot, and but being able to really see it firsthand and how important every job is to things. This is just a pond we built. Not rocket science on it, but we just get a small pond. This is probably not even a half an acre as far as surface area. But it was very strategic to capturing water from a big drainage and creating it took what was a wetland and concentrated into a usable source. So we didn't change the wetland, like wetland's fine, but we changed it into something that we can really use as opposed to just a seep of water. We created water that we can get a hold of. The very first season we had that pond, we had one of these, 2-inch downpours, thunderbursts, boom, here comes 2 inches in like an hour or half an hour. And the pond just instantly filled up, just totally full. And okay, that's fine. So we began running our kind of management, rotational grazing, multi-species, compost, all those things. 18 months later, same event happens, the pond barely gets a quarter full. Well, what's the difference? Well, The difference is the water's going in the soil and not running off. And so for me, like just watching,
which is a good thing.
Which is a good thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
you want the water
For
to,
our audience.
yeah, you want the water to percolate. Yeah, you want it to be going down those wormholes. You want it to be landing on grass-covered soil and staying, not just washing off in a sheet. Increasing your organic matter 1% in an acre of soil increases your water holding capability by like 20,000 gallons of water. Well, that's huge. So when you go from 1% to 8%, so we're a big advocate of the idea that some of these natural disasters and some of this increase in volatile weather patterns have a lot more to do with the idea that we can't hold water in our soil. Yeah. It's a good vantage point. We can step out just for a minute.
Sure.
But this kind of gives you an idea of how we're trying to break up the landscape with a nice mix of tree shelters and strips and road accesses and water down below. Mm-hmm. And of course back there on that next tree line is the creek bed. Mm-hmm. And you kind of breaking all those things up. And then again, that builds not only your water stability into your soil, right? And the water from the pond slowly percolates out into your meadows and things just by natural source of percolation. But it also means that if for some reason you have crises, you have plenty of water for your livestock. They're there, that's available. And at the same time, you're mixing in your water with your trees, you're mixing up your ecosystems, and you're watching your wildlife increase all at the same time.
Where to next?
So let's go check out some cows. We have one herd here on the farm. We try to keep everything mobbed up into one group. Yep. We do run about 800 to 900 head total, but not here in one spot. Like I said, we alluded to, we have the rental properties. And so we have a couple of different herds on different areas, but we try to keep them as big a group as possible. Yeah. And moving them from farm to farm as opposed to having a group on every farm. Yeah. Right? So we might have 3 or 4 farms that are pretty together in a geographic area, and then we'll have one group of cattle will actually load up in trailers and move from one farm to the next, so you can have efficiency of labor and efficiency of herd action. So this is a great layering opportunity, and these are going to be layers. You see what I did there? I'll be here all week. But these are some young pullets. They're not yet laying. They are actually birds that we are playing around with growing our own, so we're hatching our own right now. So these are our own breeding stock. We've kept birds for about 5-6 years now, and this is like the 7th or 8th generation of birds, and nothing fancy. They're mostly barred rock influenced. Mm-hmm. But the concept is we're finding that they're not going to lay more eggs than say a cross or a hybrid of some sort. They're going to actually lay less. But you're going to be left with a much larger stewing hen at the end, and you're going to have a much more. We found latent knowledge is being transferred from one generation to the next. So as you train these birds to go up in these egg mobiles, they go up the roost bars, or to be wary of like overhead shadows, predators, those kind of things. We are finding that these birds are much more just educated about those kind of things than a bird that we're going to get from the hatchery. Nothing wrong with hatchery birds, but in this setting, it helps and it builds some stuff. So this is just a netting. Again, this would go on a cow pasture fine, and we can move this as we go. That gets into the more how-to nitty-gritty that you can see on a lot of other episodes of things. But this is how we could easily run 5, 6, 7, 1,000 layers on a neighboring farm, that with the netting, you put the charger inside the wire so that cows can't get to it. Suddenly, cows aren't going to go through this, and the farmer is getting fertility, and you might not have to rent their farm for anything. So these are kind of a good synergistic opportunity. But we're excited about these birds. They're super calm. They're really calm. These are pullets. They're not laying yet, and they're not running around. They're very content. They're not getting scared by a shadow, and they're very, very happy and very healthy. We've had them much more hardy resistance to just general, it rains for 2 or 3 days in the spring and it's cold and it's wet, and most times they get pneumonia or they're susceptible to things like that. These birds, very hardy, very healthy, and continue to just push through. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love that that proposal as a value add, to other farmers, and
Sure.
You guys are hatching your own. That's pretty interesting. Not too many farms are doing that these days.
Right. I mean, we have, and again, we're able to partner with somebody. We've got a young farmer. He's kind of getting his foot in the door. We're not actually doing it ourselves. We've got a farmer who's doing it for us, and so we save the eggs. He takes them, hatches them in a couple small incubators, you know, maybe 1,500 at a time, 2,000 tops. And that's small for a hatchery. It's big for a backyard, but you kind of get the idea.
Yeah.
And that's a great fit for him. He's getting going, and we don't have to do it. So it's kind of a good synergy there as well. Another way to work together. So, and these are the chicken shelters, the poultry shelters, which again can be seen in a lot of different places. These happen to be turkeys, of course. And again, a great opportunity for putting these birds on neighboring properties at the same time as creating a lot of fertility. So this is a farm. This part is part of Polyface Farm as well, but we've been on this one for, oh goodness, 7 or 8 years already. So the farm we were on is about 3. This one's about 7 or 8, and then we can go back to the original one that's been over 40. And so you can even see a difference in this one. There's a lot more clover here. If we go out onto this soil a little bit, what we're looking for is just your biodiversity. When you get down in here, you got a lot of white clover. We've got these really green, luscious spots in here that are the fertility showing up, as opposed to the lighter green. Here's some more red clover. There's some red clover over there. And then when you pull back your soil, what you're looking for is just your health of your soil down deep. And let me pull this back a little bit. Here we go.
There we go. We finally made it. That's what you want, folks.
But when you open it up, I mean, there's like a little bug there. I don't know what that is, but some kind of little bug. We've got all this life going on. You got all this brown grass that is carbonaceous and going down on the soil, which your worms and your microbes are able to get to, not only because it's touching the ground, but also because it's totally shaded and protected. A little worm or a little microbe like that is not going to want to be on the surface when they're exposed, right? But when it's so labyrinth that a bug, another predator or a bird or whatever is not going to be able to come and grab them, they're suddenly happy to work at the surface, on top of the fact that the soil is going to stay damper under all this stuff, as opposed to, because it's a living mulch, right? And it's going to stay damper at the top of the soil instead of drying out. And then right here, you've got this big earthworm casting. This is, I'm just going to cut this open. And so this is actually, like, you can kind of see there's the crinkles there. So that's from an earthworm that came up and deposited all of its goodies. And I like to tell people this is not older than dirt, right? This is like 30 days old dirt, which is really cool. And when you can come out to your fields and see this kind of activity going on, you know, you're truly building soil. So that's exciting.
That's what the worms are turning that decomposed forage into, right?
Yes, that's right. So they're harvesting all this dead grass, and you know, they're turning, oh, here, I can grab a handful of it here. They're turning all of this stuff into this stuff. Or, you know, or the poultry manure or the cow manure or what have you, but they're taking this stuff, they're mixing it together, and they're depositing this back up on top of the soil. When you get a rain, your water goes down those holes, right?
Yeah.
And when your soil is open, depleted, and unhealthy, and you don't have those earthworms going on, it's like landing on cement. And your water runs off, and then it's in the river, then it's in bigger rivers, and then it's a flood, and it's a massive, huge, sometimes life-threatening, catastrophic event.
Yeah.
When you have literally millions of these holes on farms, you have this Swiss cheese look, and all the water goes down those. And back to my pond experience, that pond I was talking about is literally right over the hill here behind where we're talking. And it went from literally 2 seasons of quality management, from filling up in 1 2-inch, and they were identical rains, 2 inches in like an hour, 2 inches like an hour, but 18 months apart. One time it filled up completely and ran over with brown, funky water, you know, lots of erosion type stuff, sediment, whatever. Second time, it almost came up nothing. The difference is it went down in here.
And then, you know, going back to our scenario, you know, somebody takes over some land,
Sure.
maybe they can let it rest for a little while, they can let the forage grow back. Then maybe, like you said, they may start introducing some livestock
Sure.
to the land. I know a lot of folks will start with poultry.
Right.
It's a low barrier to entry. You can instantly throw down a ton of, you know, nitrogen, good fertilizer into your
Absolutely.
soil. You guys are doing that still over here.
Sure, that's
and
correct.
Then let's talk a little bit about what
Sure.
comes next.
The next thing is the herbivore. So the herbivore is the cow, and we can hop in and we'll go down here and take a look at these cows.
Awesome.
But that's the one that's exciting, and a lot of people want to get cows first. You said it well. It is one of the most difficult animals to get, whereas the poultry or pigs, even sheep, are a much more lower both cost and experience level to entry. So that's pretty important. So here's an example where the grass has been eaten off very hard, and you can see these are still, so like this is a big earthworm casting right here. That's a great big earthworm chunk. Here's some over here. There's some right here. There's some right there. So there's a lot, but now they're exposed. And you can see how much more the sun is penetrating down here to the soil level. Now the nice part is the cows aren't going to stay here. They're only going to be here for just today. And they're going to go on, and this is going to sprout back quickly and cover up, because this soil over here, let's say, this land here looked just like that last night. Last night the cows came in and they've eaten all this, and they're going to go into this tonight. And that's the key. And then this can rest and recover for 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, a lot of, however. Yeah. But that's where you can get this rest going on. And you can see the graze line going all the way up this cross fence and different in the direction of the cows. But having them move, and even in this area, this is a little better. So the grass was a little thicker here. The cows were able to eat it, but they still left a lot of coverage. They ate everything they want, but there's still mulch.
Right, they trampled down and have terminated a lot of this stuff over to where you got that ground cover, right? Exactly.
And so when this begins to regrow, it's going to harvest all that energy again, put that more in the soil, build your organic matter by restarting the grass plant growth and harvesting more energy. Because if we didn't harvest it, it would just die off and stop harvesting energy. And what we want to do is, the sun shines every day, most days anyway, and you want to get that energy when you can. And if your solar panels are dead, shut off, or broken, they're not going to harvest any energy. And that's what a dead, dying plant is a non-functional solar panel. This group is our fat animals, so you got this big, beautiful red one right here behind me. He's almost ready for processing. And then we have, here at Polyface, we have some of the worst animals of our group. So we run about 800 head, and we've got a couple little guys like this little black one behind him who's not great, but he's getting special treatment and some natural wormers and some natural boosting to get better healthy. So it's gonna be in the footage, so you might as well address the issue.
Of course, we're all about transparency.
But that's where it is. So you got this big guy here, and again, we're talking about calmness, right? We talked about that in the layers. We're talking about that with the cows. You know, when they're stressed, it makes the muscles tense. You get tense when you're stressed. Animals get tense when they're stressed. Well, this animal here is about to go to processing, and he is not stressed. I mean, he is about as calm and comfortable as you could be, right, buddy? Hey, bud. That's right. And they're like that all the way through loading the animals and even going. Because as I said before, remember we talked about moving them from farm to farm. Well, suddenly they get real comfortable loading on a trailer because they know going on a trailer is just taking them from one farm to another. It's kind of part of a paddock shift. Well, when they take their last ride, it's not stressful. They're just going to another place. Now, they don't go on grass and they go to a processor, but the idea of them not stressing out the load and the transportation is kind of part of our deal. And keeping them comfortable through all that process. And of course we use low stress handling techniques, Temple Grandin, Bud Williams, those kind of things. But just getting them walking through the comfortable the process of being used to moving. And even the shade structure, again, so we talk about things that are cheap, DIY stuff. Well, this is homemade, home sawn 2x4s, right? From our own sawmill, from our own timber. And our own sawn timber here, and it's just mounted on a hay wagon chassis that has been extended so it's really long. And this has enough room for over 50 animals at a time. And right now, today, it's not really hot. It's okay. But, and you can see there's a lot lounging out in the sun. But if it were 85 or 90, they'd be very hot. And we can keep them comfortable with this. The other thing that this structure does is it allows us to put the nutrients, a higher concentration of the cow's nutrients right where we want it. Meaning if there was a briar patch right here, boom, you park this right on the briar patch, they tromp it all down, total impaction, sheets of manure. And what we found is that you can find the square of these shade mobiles up to like 5 years after its application. Mm-hmm. So if you think about that, well, okay, we're gonna graze this field maybe 4 times a year, and we have a 5-year cycle, so that's 20 different spots, right, every time. And you think about if we were able to graze this pasture and put this shade structure in 20 different spots over 5 years, we're almost covering the whole pasture in that amount of time. And so then you're able to put your nutrients where you want. Again, we're here in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia, so we get more hot days than we do really, really cold days. If you live in Montana, things are different.
Yeah.
But for us, we're about keeping them more, we have to work harder at keeping them cool than keeping them warm. Mm-hmm. And so the red-hided animals work a lot better for us in this environment. We're going to talk a little bit about carbon and how important it is. I mean, we talk about carbon sequestration, we talk about carbon in the atmosphere, we talk about all those things. And one of the best ways to harness carbon and use carbon is to use it as a sponge to hold nitrogens and other very volatile and or soluble nutrients. They can end up in our water, they can end up in our air. We know what that smells like, we know what that can taste like, we know what that can do to our bodies and to our, our fish and our wildlife and things like that in the water. Mm-hmm. And so we use the carbon as a sponge. And that's one of the big things that we are here at Polyface is to focus on how do we harness the nutrients so they don't disappear. Because if you lose it, you have to pay for it another way. You either lose through your soil fertility, you lose it through having to buy it in a bag, which makes us reliant on foreign entities or fossil fuels or what have you. And the great thing is that there's enough living and dying and producing trees, typically, that we can begin, instead of just looking at our forest as a once-in-a-lifetime harvest, for timber, or something that gets in the way of your hay mower or something else. So that's kind of what we're doing here. We're talking here at Polyface. We've got our cow barn. We can go around the other side and kind of get a look at it. But the idea that we've got our hay here that we're feeding in these feed troughs in the wintertime for the cows. And the cows are dropping their manure over here, and we're harnessing it with our chips. So to kind of see the whole cycle in one, we'll start over here with our pile of chips. So here's a brand new pile that just came in today. This is actually chips and mulch from a local tree service. So anybody who's doing arborist work, tree work, in your area, they're looking for a place to dump this a lot of times. So they dump this here, and that's a great deal for them. And we can use it. So this is just a fresh group of chips, and this is a whole bank of chips. We're going to pile it. We're going to store it so it dries out. This is this stuff is very wet. We're talking about a sponge, right? If we're going to sponge up some stuff, this has got a lot of wet matter, and all of the cells are full of water, right? Well, if we pile it up and it heats, we're going to get rid of all that water. Well, now all those cells are open. Now they can take in other kind of soluble product, urine, nutrient-full water, manure, other molecules, dying and dead, microbial life, all those things can live in that, but they can't live in if it's full of water. So the first thing we do is we pile it under roof, get it to dry out. We can come up in here, and this is a pile of stuff that some of it we've added right away, We can get back here a little further. Here's some drier stuff. So this is all real damp. Actually, hey, we got some heat here. Here we go. Hey, I don't know if you can pick up that steam or not. This is some stuff we just piled in here last week.
Oh yeah, there it goes.
There's the steam going.
Yeah.
And it's hot to the touch already. And it's starting to, I can even smell, if I could, this is a scratch and sniff video, we could be smelling it. There we go, there's some steam right there.
Yeah.
But again, it
smells good too.
It does, right? It's yeah, it smells like a little walk in the forest.
Yeah.
But that's the first start of your microbial life, is to get that mold and fungi going, get your heat going, and cook off your water. So that gets it warmed up. In the wintertime, say this just steams up, and you can kind of scratch this, get your own little sauna going on, just calm down, sit down in there. And instead of your forest being, again, something that's in the way of your hay mower, or something that's just a pain in the neck or a non-valuable resource, it suddenly becomes incredibly valuable, because if we don't have these chips, our manure stinks, we lose our nutrients, and we put it on the soil and it goes into water, it goes off in the air. But it all starts with the chipping department, and that's where we start with that and break it down, because you can't take firewood and put that somewhere, because it doesn't absorb anything. You need lots of surface area.
Yeah.
So that's what a sponge works like.
So how long are you letting it decompose, and then
typically this is going to be piled for at least, I think 2 months is great. 30 days is sufficient.
Does the ambient temperature impact it at all?
When it's warmer, when it's more of like a 40 to 60, it composts better than when it's 0 or 100. But it will compost in all of those climates. Yeah. It just does better when it's in that kind of like 40 to 60 range, or certainly 40 to 90 range. It doesn't like it when it's super hot. It definitely doesn't like it when it's really cold. That kind of shuts down all your decomposition. But once it's done heating and or steaming, it's turned into this dry spot, and then it'll stay there in that stage for indefinitely until it gets wet again. Anyway, so then we take that and we can take it over here to our cow barn, and we can put down layer after layer to absorb our nutrients. Watch your step there.
Yep.
And we can use that for all sorts of things. It doesn't have to just be for our cows. It's like this is some rabbits we've got going on. They're dropping their manure down here, and we're just kicking our nutrients or our chips up in here. Hey guys, and you've got your decomposition going on, and suddenly instead of it being chips, it becomes more of this dark stuff, and it's full of all sorts of molds and fungi and things like that. And then we go over here to where the cows are, or were, I should say. The cows, again, are eating in this bedding, or eating in this feed trough. And trying to think of places.
Those are some small cows, Daniel.
Yeah. Well, here's why. So the pigs come in after the cows go out. So the cows are in here during the winter, and these boards are gone. They're eating in these feeder gates right here. They're dumping all their manure and urine out here in this bedding area. And then when it gets nasty and slimy and wet, we take the chips, we push the cows out in their little loafing yard, and we put a layer of chips in. Every time that we do that, or every third time that we do that, we're gonna put in a layer of whole corn. All right, now the whole corn is here because they finished up, but you'll understand what I mean by that in just a second. After the cows go out, the pigs come in, and the pigs turn the compost looking for that corn, right? Yeah. So they're going to make hay right now. That's what they're heading to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you got to make the hay at some point. So
usually while the sun shines,
that's right? Yep.
Sorry, I had to.
No, that's right. Yeah, you had to cut it down.
There,
that's right. No, that's good. Well, as I say, we don't like to make a lot of hay, but when you have to make it, you want to make it good, and you want to get it done well, and then store it dry, so that we can feed it. Right. So this is there's that. It's so windy today. The wind is blowing some of the windrows. But anyway, they'll get that done.
Okay, so you said about the...
So the pigs will come in here to stir up the bedding, looking for the whole corn. So they won't get any of this. They'll just have to dig to get it. They literally will work for food and want to work for food, and that's the only way they get paid, is to go get food. And when they're doing that, then they're turning up the bedding. So I'm just gonna step over here and show you how they've turned it up. And so anybody's ever mucked out a stall or a horse stall, it's all packed together, the cows, it's all mixed in, it's real tight. But this is all really nice and fluffy. And that just turns up real nice. So it's got hay, it's got, I'll get in here real close. It's got hay, it's got chips. But again, this smells like a forest floor. It's almost like something you get at a garden center, right? Because it's very broken down, it's compost. I mean, look how much smaller the pieces of wood chips are compared to what was over there in the shed where it's drying. Because this is just hay, chips, cow manure, and urine. That's it.
Yeah.
But it looks completely different than it did a few minutes ago. And then they'll break this down, and now it's totally composted, and we can just scoop it out, put it right on our spreader, and put it right on the field. We don't have to go through a second handling. We don't have to go through a second transfer, again, using more fossil fuels, more energy, more time, more labor, more equipment. It's the pigs make it themselves, and as they are working, they're just getting closer and closer to bacon, which is awesome. And at the same time becoming very toned, very exercised, right? Which creates a really great flavored pork. The cool part about that is when that happens, you suddenly have the best compost you can make for the least amount of investment and some of the best pork without having to do anything to it. It just happens by itself.
Love it.
So that's kind of so the carbon becomes the backbone of our fertility program, and this compost becomes the fertility program for the whole farm. And that means that your woodlot and your forestry area are suddenly some of the most valuable pieces of ground because you need that to create your carbon and your compost, as opposed to something that was kind of just an unused, untapped resource. One of the biggest things we do is really raising farmers. You know, I mean, we raise a lot of livestock, raise a lot of product, but really it's about raising farmers. And I think transferring this information to another generation, not so much age, but just people who are interested, is one of the most important things we can do, because really it's information that's been lost, really, because when you think of the agrarian society and farmers in general making up about, you know what, like 2% of our workforce, or 2%, less than 2% of our population, or less than that. Just this age-old agrarian knowledge is just gone. And you know, whether it's building a hay wagon here and just putting a new deck on with some lumber from the farm, or processing chickens, or understanding soil life, or whatever it is, getting right into it and putting the hands on, not in some classroom somewhere, not in some book somewhere, but just really learning. And so you're pairing, I mean, it's very ancestral when you're talking about pairing a master or a grandfather or a kind of a historical knowledge person with a very interested, excited, passionate student, right? And so you're not trying to teach in bulk, you're trying to teach very individualistic, and you're trying to teach very hands-on reality, like real time. You know, we're not talking about something from eons ago, we're talking about something right here today with age-old principles. See if he's got some meat here. This just came back from our processor, from our red meat processor. Let's see. They've already unloaded.
Nice.
That's the other thing too. When you have a bigger group, something that becomes like an all-day process is now like a snap, because you've got 4 or 5 people around where you can, like, let's just chain all this in, or let's just unload these boxes, or let's just clear this fence row. An arduous job that, yeah, you can do by yourself, but man, how much more enjoyable is it to clear the fence row with 4 or 5 people in a couple hours as opposed to one person for 3 or 4 days? And it just totally changes the outlook of the project, right? So we have this, we have our meat department, we've got shipping, you know, polyfacefarms.com, and you can get, you know, products shipped right to your door. So we have a young lady who is who's totally crushing that. She's already left for the day, and again, she was one of our stewards, but she's like, hey, the way I can play a part in bringing this product to people is not actually out in the production end. It's in the shipping and customer service end. So she did the 5-month stewardship program, so she knows all the ins and outs. Like, she can answer emails great. Like, she knows exactly if someone says, how do you raise your product? She can answer it 100% better than I can sometimes. If someone says, well, what do you feed your chickens? She knows because she was a steward. All these things, those are things that are happening, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, they can know how important it is out there, which then gives them a sense of pride, a sense of involvement, and say, hey, this is, and taking it that last extra mile, because they know that the people that are out there farming can't do what they do if we don't sell it.
Yeah.
Right?
And so communicate that to the customer.
Exactly. And so creating that buy-in is so important. So that's one thing. So we got Hunter over here. He just came back with this meat. He's handling the inventory. Joy's doing the shipping. We have on-farm chef. So we have all these people. Now we have chef, right? And so she handles the evening meal, which happens to be a young lady this year. And we'll have the evening meal here in a bit. Let's see if she needs anything.
This your chef?
Hey, chef. How's it going? What are we eating tonight?
We're gonna have chicken salad and
Chicken salad? Sweet.
tortillas.
Homemade sourdough tortillas?
Yes.
What?
Let's see, chips.
All right, love it.
Set for 5:30?
We're still set for 5:30. Yes, ma'am. Looking forward to it. All right, thanks, chef. See you in a bit. Let's go check out our store, because we have people running. When you begin selling things retail, you have integrated stuff. You have people come into the farm, because again, we don't want to have to take all of our resources from the farm to the city. We want the city to come to us. We want the urbans to come to us.
That's fascinating. I was thinking about, you guys are pretty tucked away out here. And a lot of farms I visit are close to urban population.
Sure.
But you guys aren't, yet you're still thriving, and I love that.
Well, and it's very purposeful. I mean, we're very, we work hard at it, because anybody who comes and says, I'm just passing by, I know they're lying to me, because that just didn't happen.
Yeah.
Oh,
You're good. It's a good, 10, 20 miles from
absolutely, from an interstate, a main urban center, absolutely. So again, this is our on-farm store. It's got everything from so I walk down this way. We've got our meat and poultry over here. We also partner with a lot of farms. Don't feel like you have to do everything, right? I talk a lot about, the great homesteading movement is awesome. I get to enjoy talking to Homesteaders of America, modern homesteaders, by the time this airs, I've already been to the Rory Feek one down in Tennessee. It's awesome. We love to see that. I mean, Dad has a book, Joel has a book, Homestead Tsunami, just seeing how that's taken over the country. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is, a lot of us want to become rugged individualists and not work together. And we reinvent the wheel all the time. We all buy our own tractor. We buy our own Energizer. We have our own one cow, instead of grouping. And so for us, we always say, let's just do what we do well and try to partner with people who do what they do well. So for example, we don't do dairy. So we partner with a local dairy. They do an A2 dairy. They make cheese. We turn some of our products into some chorizo. We partner with some ferments, kombucha. Then of course all of our meats, local, what should I say here? Local bakery, yeah. So they make pre-cooked, ready to go. If you want the convenience, literally you just thaw that out, throw it on a pan. Don't support Pillsbury, we can do that too.
It almost feels like a grocery store.
Yeah.
And which is awesome, because it's on a farm.
Right.
How awesome is that?
Very awesome.
Yeah.
Very awesome. We love it. Local trout. We got a trout spring. So anyway, not to go through every product, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
And of course you got all of our beef and pork and chicken and so on, as well as trying to value add some other things. Some cow hides. And at this point, it feels weird for me to say it, but there is the general swag, and people want to buy souvenirs, T-shirts, things like that.
Of course.
Which is very possible.
Got to diversify your revenue streams,
Exactly. But the main thing is, when people come out here, they're buying into the trust level, right? So when we have that open door policy, like I say, we welcome anybody to come and visit the farm 24/7, 365, right? And the store has store hours, of course, but they can come and see the farm at any time. And so that creates that trust transparency. And we feel like that's very important. So when people come here, we try to do as much as we can to make sure that the products that are on the shelves maintain that trust through. So we control our product, but then we also try to make sure that the other product is the same. And that's the way people view it. When they say, hey, if I come out to Polyface and buy this, I know it's going to hit these standards. And so we work very hard at making sure that happens. And like I said, getting people out here is the goal. So it's got more things than just one item. And when you partner with people, that creates a much bigger community involvement, right? And instead of someone coming out for just one thing, they're going to come out multiple times because there's more things to get. So it just makes sense from a marketing perspective.
Yeah.
It makes sense from a connective perspective. And then suddenly, again, we've got part-time help. We've got a couple young folks that are kind of in between the high school college thing. We have a lot more hours during the summer than the winter, so we can hire seasonal help. So a lot of the things that the modern industry does, right? Like that is, they do it for all the right reasons, but they do it in a way that doesn't build community. They're just kind of, it can be easily exploited, right? And so for us, our goal is to make sure that we're trying to do that out here on the farm, like you said. And so we're able to reach out and say, okay, here's some good people that are just wanting to be in the community, wanting to be in that agrarian society, wanting to give back to the regenerative agriculture side.
Yeah. But
they don't either have the time, the desire, the skill sets to butcher chickens, pick eggs, slop hogs, that kind of stuff, right? And that's how you can plug them in. I mean, the lady who's working here in the store, hired here recently, and she's just thrilled, kind of after college, very adamant about regenerative agriculture, but doesn't have a desire to farm, and it's great, so she can get back. And then here in the processing facility here, you can leverage that big group of people. Instead of having 2 people just slogging away at it for hours and hours, we can have 9 or 10 people crush it out and crush 600-700 birds in a couple hours because of the larger group. And so we can all mass together and do something large quick.
And where can people go to find out more about your stewardship program?
Sure. So to go to our stewardship program, you go to polyfacefarms.com, check out the education tab, and scroll down to apprenticeship or stewardship programs. And we take applications in the 1st of August for the following year. So believe it or not, it's coming back up real soon for that process. But we would love anybody who would be interested to apply. And like I said, it's so empowering and inspiring to see someone who is just interested in learning about food, and it's just the lost art of growing food and getting in touch with your land and all these things, to just be empowered by that. So Polyface Farms, education tab, love to see their applications, and the beautiful thing too is there's a lot of other farms doing it. It doesn't have to just be us. We welcome people here, but there's a lot of other farms that are doing it too.
Awesome, cool. Well, if you guys want to, check out that application, there'll be a link in the description of this video for you. Thanks for watching, subscribe to this video, and we'll see you guys next time.